Hey there, YouTubers. It's almost the end of January here. I'll experiment with keeping this a fuzzy date. I've always been kind of like Stardate, Captain Kirk, or Captain Picard, like Star Trek or something, giving the star date or something at the beginning of all my videos. That can be useful actually because when you upload is going to be the date on YouTube, which could be a lot later, can't be earlier. Um, there is something to be said for doing a lot of time date stamping at the beginning of anything. That chronology does matter. So newspapers, it always annoys me greatly to come across any kind of article that doesn't have a date or an author. You like to be able to track these things down if there's ever going to be a question of verifiability or whatever. Now, what am I going to talk about here? Something kind of different than that whole intro. Back to Python. So if you follow my vlogging at all, you know I'm a blogger and a vlogger and some other things. But I talk about computer programming. It's not always about a specific language. I've grown up in the time when computers took off. Like we went from 0 to 60, whatever that means, right? We went from no computers to computers everywhere. Because I was born in 1958, so there were transistors and radios and televisions, and we were getting into semiconductor devices. We were getting into Moore's law, but it's in my lifetime of I'm 60 now, so 20 times 3, 6 decades of Moore's law, you could say, double, 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 lots of transistors on a chip, and I'm on a Mac Air, and just a guy with a very meager kind of existence in terms of, I'm not a super rich person, but look what I have. In 1900s, you wouldn't expect that I could have a TV studio with like a huge amount of computing power and languages, and I'm a very rich guy by the standards of the 1900s. Now, early mid, of course they were having a war. It's not really fair, like world wars, and people are in a hellish situation all over the world right now too. So I'm not saying we've somehow made it to utopia. In fact, that's one of my topics is, by the way, I'm sorry if I haven't been showing you anything. Let's look at stuff. I'm looking at, let's make this bigger. I'm going to talk about teaching Python today. Buckminster Fuller, who's kind of a utopian, American transcendentalist, Python, and a few other topics are what I generally talk about. And the Python and the Bucky stuff, I tend to wander around when I talk. I'm thinking of myself as on a ball or a sphere, and there are main points I want to hit, kind of like Grand Central stations or hub airports. Like if you're Federal Express or UPS or one of those, you'll route your stuff all to some hubs at night and then out to where stuff's supposed to go during the next day, something like that. There are patterns for using hubs on a sphere, and that's an interesting way to think about concurrency. And it's actually, instead of creating something from scratch, look at the planet every day. I don't know if you've seen those maps that show sort of all the airplanes every day, what that looks like in terms of traversal patterns across the globe. But we are a spherical computer in terms of motherboard, right? Motherboard Earth, I've called it, which can sound kind of goofy to some people. I understand that. So this is Bucky stuff. Now I realize when I do YouTube, you can freeze frame and screen paste. Not that anyone would, but it's a high volume of information, so we can take advantage. I'm just showing you a lot of stuff. That was passwords, actually. So I probably should, what should I do? Should I cut that out? Yeah, I'll cut that out. I'll cut that out. I'm trying not to edit when I do these because I want to just get into a place where I can not have to edit later, right? It's a whole big another post-production. You can put infinite time into that. But yeah, I teach Python to kids. I'm going to do that today. I'm going to drive to a school. We're going to do an after-school class, and we're going to look at codesters. Have you seen codesters? Let me talk about this. This isn't actually what I planned to talk about. I was going to talk about how important types are. Types in teaching Python, and Unicode especially, which is not a type, but the string type in, say, Python and Rust and other languages, we've always had number types and the string type, and then string is kind of a collection already. We've got individual letters lined up. So it's the beginning of a list or things that have multiple. You could say numbers are that too if you think of how they're all made out of prime numbers or something along that order. But in any case, once we get to strings, we've got a whole door we can walk through in terms of Unicode. Emojis are part of Unicode, so having emojis. Let me switch screens. Can I do that? No, I think better would be to. I'm doing adult and kids when I teach Python. In other words, I teach middle schoolers today, and I'll be teaching adults pretty soon as well. Sometimes both on the same day. I prefer not to do that. So what I'm trying to do is I've got two screens and I'm trying to slide one window onto the other, and for some reason that always does work. Why wouldn't it work here? I'm trying to bring VS Code into, because this is in full screen, I'm trying to bring VS Code into the picture. When I teach Python, I recommend, especially if people are new, don't just assume a specific IDE or interactive development environment. This one is called VS Code. You may recognize it, of course. I've got the black dark theme going. When you get the Anaconda distribution of Python here in 2019, you'll get at least these two IDEs already there if you want. The full Anaconda, not Miniconda. You get both. I could say three IDEs, but I don't think Jupyter Notebook or Jupyter Lab need to be. Those are two separate things. I don't think Notebook or Lab, let's leave those aside as non-IDEs. What we have are Spider here. This is the home base I'm talking about. In terms of, again, I guess the full screen is something I cannot abide here. Exit full screen. Hello. What do we have? This is VS Code, okay? So this is by Microsoft. It's open source. And let me just minimize it. Oh, I thought I was minimizing it. So Anaconda distro, and then I'm going to show you Codesters, and then I'll call it a day, all right? So I know what I'm doing now. Here's the Unicode stuff in the Python docs. So emoji, like I'm saying, emoji and Unicode really go together. And as a teaching doorway, if you're looking for ways to get into programming and say teaching Python, talk about types. I've got more on Edge of Sig about this. Check around this time in the timeline. Check about teaching with types. It's not a new idea. It's not original with me. I'm just pretty clear on it. Okay, so here's Anaconda. This distro you can get for free. Just go grab it off the internet. If you're high school or above, I'm not saying middle school shouldn't. Just, think of your peers in high school are more likely to be grabbing this. If you're doing it in middle school, you're like ahead of the curve. And you may never get to this stuff. I'm not saying you have to do anything. I'm just saying rite of passage. You want to go in the direction of computer stuff. Here's a good door. A lot of kids your age are going through it if you're in high school, but not if you're younger than that, probably at this point in time. So Spider is what I'm talking about as a full-featured IDE, and the one I actually clicked and ran earlier is VS Code. It's already running, so I don't need to run it again. So I'm minimizing this, minimizing the web, Python documents, and now we're looking at VS Code. And here I'm going to pull up Unicode, a function, and run it in the terminal, I guess is what I'll do, which I can do just by double-click and say run file in the terminal. You can also get a REPL here, read, evaluate, print loop. We call that a REPL, where you can interact with the language quickly. Now, it didn't print anything out, so very boring. How about I make it, let's see, why didn't it print anything out? Unicode, PY. Let's just print force. It's a side effecty thing that sends stuff to the console. So if I say print emoji, what I'm doing is looping through here and grabbing all the Unicode data points, or code points they're called, between two addresses. And this happens to be a section of the emoji. I really don't think this is all of them. This is probably just the smiley faces or something. I can't, it's only six, well, it's 20 of them. You can tell that much. And the hexadecimal up here, it's like 20. Okay, should make this bigger for you, shouldn't I? So here we go. We're going to run it again in the terminal. And then I'll show you Codesters, and then we're done here. So blah, blah. Here we go. And you'll see all the first 20 emojis. They look kind of like smiley faces down here. You see those? So it's fun to teach with emoji live. That's what I'm talking about. Get the kids into it. Adults like it too. Not just because it's fun and playful and colorful and a good workout of a modern IDE, but because you're opening up the whole idea of a database. Because each one of these glyphs, and they're all of our glyphs, including our alphabet, they all have attributes. So in Codesters, last thing to show you, this should be free, and you can create your own account, share this with kids. Basically, it lets you write a kind of a variety of Python. It's kind of closer to 2.7. It's not fully implemented Python. I won't say dumbed down. I would say specialized or reduced instruction set Python, which is perfect for learning Python. It's not going to hurt. It's like a lot of languages strive for this, to have sort of namespaces that are less complex and that are nevertheless very usable and you don't fall off a cliff. Well, this is one of those. And when you hit the green button, it runs the Python code on the left and turns it into something on the right. In this case, it looks like it wants to play scissors, paper, rock, and I haven't played this for so long that I don't know how it works. It looks like I'm supposed to press certain keys like rock. Okay, and scissors? It came up with paper. Okay, let me do that again. Rock, me, scissors, I win. I'm just going to stick with rock. We were tied there. Okay, let me try paper. So I'm hitting actual keys on my keyboard. It may be wiggling my camera. Sorry about that. And somebody's going to win this game eventually. It looks like it has 3. How? Maybe this game never ends. Like I'm looking for the logic of where it might tell me I've lost. So we're into like debugging or enhancements or whatever you want to call it. I think this one probably just keeps counting higher and higher and never ends. Am I correct? I don't know. So I could wade into this and give you, but look, that's not much code, is it? And we've got a whole graphical game going on here. We didn't have to do any low-level coding because this whole project compiles to JavaScript under the hood and just runs in your browser. Very brilliant. All right, so pedagogy, andragogy, Python, Buckminster Fuller. If you like those kind of topics, come back for more. Talk to you later.